My name is Brad Ladislaw, president of the California Mortgage Association, and we're here in beautiful Newport Beach, California for our spring conference. I have Shafiq Taymuree here with me, a good friend of mine with Stonecrest Financial. Would you mind introducing yourself and your firm a little bit?
Shafiq Taymuree, Executive VP at Stonecrest. I've been with them for almost coming on to 29 years. We're celebrating our 40th year in business. Been part of CMA for a very long time. I have the better title, the immediate past president of CMA, and Brad's obviously done a fantastic job taking over that role and taking it a lot further.
Thank you. I appreciate that. And pretty soon I will earn that title, and,
Yes.
and then I can enjoy my Wednesday evenings
Yeah,
at the conference.
absolutely.
How long you been with the firm?
Almost 29 years.
29 years. Were you in the loan business prior to joining the team at Stonecrest, or was that your
Yeah, I
first?
was actually. I started the tail end of my career at Wells Fargo. I got into mortgage side of the business, and my manager at that time recruited me when she joined Stonecrest a few years later, and then been there ever since. We never knew it'd grow into running a fund and management, and the company grew. So I went from the sales side of things and production to management to running our fund and that whole division now.
Okay, so when you first started with Stonecrest, you were just on production, sales originator type
Correct,
position?
just a loan officer at the company, and we used to broker a lot of loans, both regular residential, A-paper, subprime then came about. We always had a private money lending side of our business, but it was individual trust deeds. In '04, we started a fund concept, and that's really when the owner kind of tapped me on the shoulder to help him out with some underwrite sales training, and then eventually he said, "Well, hey, why don't you just help me run the funds?" And then it eventually became my gig.
A lot of responsibility with your
Yes, there is.
we'll jump into that a little bit,
Sure.
investor base you currently have. But back in 2002, 3 time frame, you said a trust deed investor model. Was it
Yeah.
single trust deed, or was it
We
fractionalized, a little
we
bit of both?
yeah, we stuck to just individual trust deeds. We didn't really do fractional. Every once in a while, a couple of our investors knew each other really well over the years of just doing deals, and we would let one or two of them participate that knew each other really well. But generally, we stayed away from fractional just because of what could happen afterwards. But that was our model. We kind of matched up, an individual that could write the check for the whole thing along with whoever needed the money. Obviously, the dollar amounts were a lot smaller back then than what we lend now.
Like $75,000? I'm just kidding.
And it could have been back then,
Yeah.
it ranged from
Yeah.
50,000 to like 500,000. We only had a couple of players that could go larger in that. And that's what really pushed us to go to the fund model because we lost out on a $4 million deal because our two investors were both unavailable at that
Yeah.
time and got beat by a fund. And we said, we need to do a
Never
fund.
again.
We need to do a fund.
Yeah. And then when you launched your fund, how was that process? Because you had never managed a fund prior to, and that was the
Right.
first fund for Stonecrest. So what was that process like?
So the owner looked into it and he went through and found the attorneys. And that's how we also really got motivated to be heavily involved in California Mortgage Association. The attorneys were involved, other fund managers were involved that were going into this concept. And we thought this would be the, most valuable place for us to kind of learn and grow the funds. It was hard sledding in the beginning, raising capital, getting to any kind of critical mass, and differentiating yourself and what we did. But the fund grew till '08, '09 happened, and then we
You can
did
interview
raise
yourself.
capital.
You're going right into my next question. So
Yeah.
just elaborate on that more, because that was just a complete unknown for everyone at that point in time.
Yeah, it was interesting. We had grown to only about like 50 million back then, and we were like, okay, again, leaning on CMA quite a bit in terms of seeing what others were doing, trying to find out what steps we should take to mitigate the risk, and but it became pretty severe. We had to work pretty hard, both the hard work and very proud moment for us.
Hmm.
We were able to take no loss to principal. Our lowest return in that fund ended up being 7.2%. It went the entire duration for 15 years and everyone got their principal back. That gave us a lot of credibility for the second iteration. We opened up Secured Income Fund, which is our flagship fund now. It's grown to 300 million. People saw that we not only survived the downturn, but we managed really well through it. We also managed some competitors that we got voted in and we took over funds to try to stabilize it or minimize the damage. So that was kind of really the silver lining to a really tough time. It was a catalyst for our stick kind of growth that we had from 2010 till now.
So I'm of the belief you have some debt funds today that are great. Great, they know what they're doing. They got the proper team in place. But then I've also been pretty vocal that debt funds have been reproducing like rapids, and they're not all cut from the same cloth. And I
Sure.
think we're going to see some of that again, especially with the flood of institutional money that's come in the past decade, if you want to call
Yeah.
it that. Now you have debt funds potentially trying to compete, especially in the fix and flip value add, compete with the institutional money, but they got two different risk tolerances,
Yeah.
and you could get it's a slippery slope, especially once you slap a little bit of leverage on the fund, you sell
Sure.
off some loans. Some of those buyback provisions have some teeth to it. I'm not going to ask you for your market call on
Yes.
that, but when you're in the heat of it in that great recession, how are those conversations with your investors? Because I think you have some managers today that kind of hope things get fixed, and then they don't need to have the tough conversation. I take it you are the firm where you need to have these tough conversations up front and set the expectation, and here's our plan of attack. How did those go?
A lot of our investors have been with us for a long time, or they were, it's not that they didn't get spooked. We did have a moratorium on redemptions. That's like the worst thing that happened to them. But in hindsight, they all loved it because they got great income that they weren't going to get at that time, and they got every dividend payment, no principal loss. But it could have turned out differently. The conversation is like, hey, we're in it for the long haul. We're going to participate alongside you. So we donated a lot of what would have been due to the managers to the fund for profits. Not that the fund didn't experience losses in that time. That would be really, really unusual for any debt fund against real estate in that time frame not to take losses. Just we offset it with profits. We added to loan loss reserve. So we reduced the return to the investors. We reduced our management fee, and we donated things like default interest, late penalties, all these things that we were able to collect. And then sometimes we had assets that we were able to get because the borrower, and then we were able to add value by putting in more our work and our expertise and created profits, right? As investors saw that and we were able to communicate with them that, hey, we're in it with you, that conversation started to turn around, and they really were like, okay, even if you lose money, it's not because of lack of effort or you're not also participating alongside us. It's not all about just the manager and whatever happens to you happens.
Yeah, and it's think your team and firm's experience, or at least the vision is this is how we're going to weather this storm, and it's not going to be guaranteed, but now we have a fighting chance to kind of
Correct.
get to the other side. And then now I want to pivot to present day.
Yeah.
I think your experiences then and how you navigated one of the toughest times in recent history as it pertains to real estate and debt to your investors now in your flagship fund.
Yeah.
Predominantly high net worth individuals, wealth advisors, RIAs. What's your investor composition
Our,
now?
our, our preferred is through the registered investment advisors, the RIA community. They're fee-based. They charge their clients. They want to find good managers. Tough to get a relationship and that trust, but once you do and they really see that you are credible and you really have this track record and all this experience, once they do get to that, they love it. They love the steady income, and they don't have these high number expectations. So you deal with some individuals that are involved, they're looking at, oh, I'm high net worth. Once I take my tax returns into consideration, I need north of 12, 14, or at least double digit returns. Our lending is not
Yeah.
that risk oriented to get that. We're meant to be the steady Eddie, clip coupons. Our lows don't get as low as that rates can get, and our highs don't get as high as they can with all these other products that come and go with a lot of different risk tolerance.
Yeah, and I think you have, not saying that they're inexperienced private investors today, but they get blindsided by, I call it shiny toy syndrome. Oh, I could get double
Yeah,
digit returns in debt or going through a debt fund, but they don't understand the nuances to get that
correct.
double digit return, especially today.
Sure.
Chances are you're doing construction, heavy value add, you're doing junior position loans, probably junior position out of state, a
Yeah,
little more rural, and then that fund will be levered up on top of that
correct.
to a point where, as I alluded to earlier, that slippery slope.
Yeah.
So this is not advice. I'm not an attorney. I'm not your attorney. You should consult an attorney before
Yeah,
cutting a check
for sure.
or talk to your advisor. But if someone's offering double digit returns in a debt fund today, it's okay to ask them, how do you get to that double digit return?
And I would add to that is that most funds that you find even the extreme, right?
Mhm.
Ponzi scheme, doing things that are not and the benefit of the investors and start going sideways. Almost every one of them that I've seen implode, you look back, their returns were always that higher return.
Above market.
You have to attract that money, and you're not going to attract it at 8%.
Yes.
7%.
Yeah.
They got to get them to that green level. And so you also bring on that extra layer, but 100%, there's a lot of smart players, good players with well-intended, but they take on that risk and markets can make them
And they
lose money.
and the markets move quickly,
They do.
very quickly. And we saw it during COVID. We saw it in 2022. We will see it again. It's just
100%.
what's the composition of that fund. And I think as an investor and advisor going in, it's okay to ask those tough questions. If you were to ever be insulted by a question an RIA asks you, they should not give you an
Correct.
allocation.
No.
So ask the tough questions.
For sure. Our number one thing when we meet a new RIA in any one of these events or marketing, or if it's not a warm handoff, and even if it is, then the first thing I always tell them is that, look, it's open kimono.
Mhm.
You should and want in a fund like ours to have complete transparency to a point where you can trust because you have a fiduciary responsibility to your investor and we have a fiduciary responsibility also.
Mhm.
And in that case, everybody should give as much transparency as they can to make sure that they're in complete comfort level of knowing that you're legit.
And it's meeting people in person. I know you and your team are out all the time. You have your investor events that you do,
Yeah.
and there's a social media is a good thing for marketing, but there are a lot of people out there that have a very smooth social media. They got a great marketing team behind them. You go meet them in person, and there's no way in hell that you wrote that content. You're a different person.
Yeah.
So it's how do you handle the in person with your investors?
Generally, you want, at least in our firm,
Hmm.
we want our content to really replicate what we are. And we want that messaging to be who we are as a core value. It has sometimes little to do with sales of our fund. It's
Hmm.
about explaining our culture. What's our mindset? What do we believe in at Stonecrest? What is our number one focus? It's our ROI comes from our people. We know, number one, if you don't have a good team, if you don't have people with great, ethics, work ethics, ethical behavior and are good and they fit your fabric. If you're not putting those as a priority, that's when you expose yourself. You can expose yourself on a loan by not underwriting it correctly. You can get a employee that can defraud investors by taking money out of, or diverting something or
Hmm.
leaking. You have to have a wider picture of like, who are we? What are we about?
Hmm.
And get that messaging. Because I think social media, what you put in your marketing materials, all those things, if they don't resonate from your core of reflecting really how you are and your standards, it's the tool. It's
Hmm.
not what it actually drives.
Hmm.
The only times I've had investors or RAs ever commit is the ones that sit across the table and can stare you in the eyes and you give them transparency and you can make them understand that you are credible.
It's very important, and at least my goal of being involved on LinkedIn or doing
Yeah,
interviews, that when someone meets me in person, I want them to feel like, oh, that is the same person that I
for
have
sure.
seen the last 6 to 9 months on LinkedIn. And if they don't have that feeling, it's
For sure.
it, it's it's off the relationship's over. And
Yeah.
I hate the phrase "fake it till you make it" or some of those others. It's
Yeah.
no, you
Be
can
as
fake it till you
authentic.
don't. Yeah, yeah. Just be real. Types of loan products that Stonecrest offers today. What are your main food groups you're tackling?
We've always wanted to be a differentiator in terms of our product line, where the masses aren't. We certainly help real estate investors. We have people that are fix and flippers that use different parts of our portfolio. But the most alluring products that we focus on is we have a true revolving line of credit that's secured against real estate. And that just takes a lot of back shop and a lot of work for managing, that capital and making sure you have credibility for as long as we have to provide. When you're providing 1 million, 2 million, $10 million lines, you got to make sure you can perform and have that capital available.
And what's unique about that structure, it's not just for 1 to 4 unit properties.
No, it can be mixed between commercial, residential. We've used up to 8 properties sometimes to get to the line amount that the investor wanted. And that could have a single family, a multifamily, and
Mhm.
an industrial building and a special purpose property all mixed in. We underwrite all those things, we look at them all differently in calculating the LTV because one may have
Mhm.
more risk than the other, but we're not shying away from mixing up your whole portfolio. We don't have to stay because we're not selling it to secondary
Yeah.
or having to do those things. But yeah, that product's very powerful. Then where I think we have a strong footprint in terms of generation of new loans because we have a wholesale channel and a lot of relationships that's been is our consumer bridge loan. You hear bridge loans a lot in the fix and flip world, DSCR, all of these things. Our bridge is a true primary residence to primary residence bridge. And that product, we may not have a ton that stays in the portfolio because they churn fast, but from a production side, I think we just shy of 300 million in production last year. That is the reason why a $300 million fund almost funds the same amount that it's also managing. It's
Mhm.
because of the churning of the loans on half of the portfolio.
And that's fascinating. And those two products are unique in themselves, where some may try and market that they offer it, but they don't have the support to actually
Yeah.
close on it.
There's a lot of
Yeah.
disclosures. There's a lot of requirements. Have seen many bridge loans that are what I call either illegal or
Some are no longer.
yeah, some do go away when you don't do those things correctly. It's difficult in our area, at least. You're talking about multi-million-dollar homes and the markets that we play in. So there's not also too many lenders that can do $5 million, $6 million, $7 million bridge loans, or
Yeah.
not that they're all that way. I mean, a lot of them are from 500,000 to a couple $1 million, but we're also spread out all out throughout California.
Love it. We're gonna do a complete 180 because we
Yes,
got to go listen to the keynote here in a couple
yes.
minutes. Who is Shafiq Taymuree? What makes you tick? What do you do for fun?
First and foremost is spending time with my daughters. That brings me the most amount of joy. From a personal level, I love to golf. I wish I could golf as well as you do, Brad,
Those are my
but
day.
I'm getting there. I just have about 20 strokes to shave off, and then I'll be at Brad's game.
Well,
But and I love to snow ski, and so yeah, I'm heading up to Whistler to ski with my two daughters. So that's two combined into one. So I'm really looking forward to next week. Oldest just graduated from college and finished a quarter early, so excited to celebrate her with my younger one and just started Santa Clara.
it's amazing. And you've done some amazing trips with your daughters. You shared some of the experience
Yeah.
you've had. But if you could do a bucket list trip, money, timeline, work is just a non-issue. What
Mhm.
would be a trip you would like to do?
It could go one of two ways. If it's from seeing place, I probably would want to explore multiple places in the world and get to see some key places like Australia, New Zealand, Hong Kong, and the Asia part. I've seen some of the Europe, but it could also turn and I would trade all of that if I could have one trip to Augusta National and get to play the course.
If you did not bring that up, they were no longer friends. We're no longer friends.
So that's what it would be. Yeah.
Very good. Well, Shafiq, I'm very proud and honored to be able to call you my friend. We've grown closer
Likewise.
over the past few years, especially through CMA.
Absolutely.
Appreciate all you do for the industry, for CMA, and then being willing to hang out with me every once in a while. So thank you.
Likewise.
Okay.
Thank you, Brad.